Hello, welcome back. I'm Savalian. I make videos about games, development, and creativity, and I'll be honest, I've been having a little bit of a hard time getting going with my game dev this year. I don't have a lot to show off yet. I've pretty much just been playing Valheim and trying to get things together, sort of maintenance mode on everything as I get going for the year. So instead of doing game dev this week, we are going to play a game, and we're going to play my most played Steam game of 2023, according to my Steam replay, or whatever it's called, and that is Diplomacy is Not an Option. I played a ton of this game because it's pretty hard. It's a real-time strategy that you can pause, so it's mostly real-time strategy, and I like to do the challenge modes. I really like to do the challenge modes, and I wanted to do that for this video, beat one of the challenge modes, but I'll be honest, I'm not quite good enough to defeat at least the ones that I've been attempting, which are the zombie mode ones. So I did the next best thing. I did endless mode, and they have an endless mode called They Are Legion, which is very similar to a lot of the zombie-based challenges, where you have zombies that come alive at night, and they flood your base, and then you also have waves of enemies normally, and those are also zombies. So all zombies on this one, and we're starting up here. I know that these corpses are going to be a problem, so the first thing I did was put up archers and defenses near where the corpses are spawned on the map, because I know at some point they're going to get up and start walking around, and I want to be ready for that. And so I started by just putting up a couple of walls with archers on them, so the archers are kind of safe from attacks. They can get, the walls can get knocked down and they can get attacked there, but they should be safe enough to at least put a dent in the zombies, and then I can respond with other units if I need to. And this strategy did work pretty well. I had a couple of groups that I needed to catch, but for the most part, decent first zombie wave. And I wasn't sure if it would let me know when the zombies were going to rise, and it looks like it does. There's a little message that comes up. The announcer guy mentions that, that there's been a bad omen or something, and then that night the zombies arise. And like I mentioned, this mode has both zombie waves that happen not on the wave schedule that are made up of zombies on the map, and then it also has these scheduled waves that come, I thought during the day, but it turns out these can either be during the day or at night. It just depends on where you are in the run. So later they started coming in the day and also at night. I got through the first real wave without a problem as well, and right now I'm pretty much just getting my base in order, making sure I have resources. Trees are always tough because the more trees you harvest, the farther out you have to go to get them. Same with stone, but it takes a little bit longer to use up the stone. And something I've been trying lately is to start with farther away stone deposits, because when you upgrade to stone mine level 2, it actually increases the amount of stone that's in the node. And so if I start with the farther away ones, then when I have more stone available, I can do the closer ones, and it all just happens much faster. And in theory, I get more stone at a time where I desperately need stone to build walls and defenses and such. So I don't know if I can say for sure whether this is a good strategy or not, but it's something I've been trying, and I feel like the logic is sound. And we are going to jump around in this run a bit, as you may have seen in the edit, because this took me several hours to do. I think it was probably about 5 or 6 hours between yesterday and today when I did this run, and that's pretty normal. These Diplomacy is Not an Option runs, do typically take a while. Even the ones that aren't endless mode can go for a while if you do well, and if there's an objective that has like a lot of waves to it or something like that. So this is something you'll want to settle in for. This is a binge game. It's not really a quick in and out game, it's a binge game. On day 13, I got my first double wave, so my first wave with more than one group of enemies. And it got a little hairy, I'll be honest. My builders are pretty slow, especially since one of the challenges on this map is that because there's corpses everywhere, your citizens are more likely to get sick. And in order to build the hospital, you need Town Hall 2. And without it, your builders and your workers and everyone are just very slow, because when they are sick, they pretty much slow to a walk. The hospital heals them up pretty quick. They do need to walk to the hospital, which takes a minute, but basically, I feel like it's very important to rush to Town Hall 2 as fast as you can on this one. It's 150 wood and 100 stone, and then you're able to build things like the Tier 2 barracks, bigger houses, stone walls, stone gates, things like that. And one thing I really like to do is make use of the watchtowers, both for defense by putting an archer and later a crossbow on the top of the watchtower, but mostly for visibility. So if you don't know where these mountains are on the map, you can get into a situation where you see the direction of the wave, but there's a big mountain in the fog of war, and so the wave actually ends up going around the mountain and approaching your base from a different direction. I've seen this a lot, and it's really, really hard to deal with if you had put your defenses in a certain place. Because when you're first starting out, you just don't have enough resources to completely surround your base with walls. So this is how I will typically play it, where I'll start by putting patches of walls on every side so that I have something there to direct archers to, but I don't really fully enclose a side of the base unless I have a wave on that side, or if I'm expecting, like in this mode, if I'm expecting a group of zombies to come from that direction, if I've seen that there's a big pile of corpses over there, then I will start to fill in those gaps, but you really need to be economical with your resources early on. So getting visibility of the map can make sure you don't get yourself into a sticky situation. I wasn't able to build a hospital until after I cleared that double wave, but I got it up, and hopefully that should speed things along. And then on day 15, I got another message that was a little different, but I believe this is just the same message that tells you zombies are going to be arriving at night. So it said something about an ominous omen. That's kind of redundant, but it said something like that and mentioned the calm before the storm. And so once I got that message, I tried to add more of those walls near where I knew the zombies were. I got a little overwhelmed on this one. I didn't have walls in some places, so zombies sort of just walked right in, but I managed to keep them off the town hall and tried to just repair it as quickly as I could. The next wave wasn't for a couple days, so I did have time between the zombies and between the waves to get those repairs done. And let's talk about research real quick. I kind of go with my gut on research. I don't really have a plan that I follow, but I tend to prioritize worker speed because that's going to speed up everything. Everything like lumber, stone, food gathering, it's going to make everything faster except building. It used to be the same speed, by the way. If anyone doesn't know, Diplomacy is Not an Option is an early access game, and I've been playing it since pretty early in the early access, not at the very beginning, but I picked it up maybe a year ago, and it used to combine just like all citizen speed into one, but then for balance or just to make the research tree a little bit more interesting, they split it out so that worker speed and builder speed are two separate research options. And so I usually prioritize worker speed, and then if I have extra wood, I will do builder speed and builder movement speed, because there's the building speed and then also builder movement speed. But I typically hold off because usually I need that wood for building defenses instead. I also prioritize at least one of the archer upgrades. I don't always do both because depending on how quickly I can get to Town Hall 2 and get some iron, I might be upgrading to crossbows anyway, and at that point I don't believe the archer upgrades do anything. I don't think they stack because they are different units. So sometimes I will fully upgrade the archers if I'm having trouble getting resources, but they give you a lot of resources around your base. So on this one, I felt okay spending some extra. The next wave was undead horses. And we're gonna come back to these because these little guys are extremely tough. They're extremely tough, and they're kind of unique in that the pikes can just destroy them, and they don't seem to respond as well to catapults and to ranged attacks as like the big beefy units do. So that you have the regular zombies, and then you have the big beefy zombies that have, I think, just a lot more health, and they do an AoE attack. And both of them are kind of equally susceptible to ranged as far as I can tell, but the horses seem to be strong against ranged. It doesn't really seem to do much at all. And I am a person who does not really keep melee units past the beginning of the game because I typically don't find them useful. But the horses, I'm starting to rethink that strategy a little bit. The next zombie night, things started to get real, much larger waves, 2 waves, and I barely got some walls up in time to stop them. It's really important, I think, to prioritize your building carefully. If you need to, you can also turn off auto repairs. I typically turn it on early because I don't always notice when things need to be repaired. But if you end up, you have a wave coming up and you also have repairs that need to be done, it can be helpful to turn them off and then prioritize new construction instead, so that you can get things up in time. Because remember, your builders have to walk to the position that you're building. They have to build it. Stone takes longer than wood to build. And so you got to make sure you're not caught in between, caught mid-build by the zombies when they show up. And after the next wave, I started to get some like stragglers coming in between the waves that were not announced by the nighttime guy. And so I'm not sure if there's a point where you start getting these, or if maybe they got stuck on some walls or something and were part of the wave but showed up late. But at some point you may have just random groups of zombies wandering in. This happens in some of the challenges too. And then I believe the campaign also has like raiders that come in. And so at this point, I think it's around day 20, just be careful. Make sure you've got some walls on most sides of your base, and it should be okay. Just a crossbow here and there to keep the peace, and it should be alright. I personally am terrible at paying attention to what's happening on the map. I keep turning off the announcer guy because he talks so much during battles. It's just like, I like the announcements when I'm not in the middle of a wave where he says that people are being attacked, because it lets me know that they're being attacked. But when the wave is happening, it's like, yes, obviously people are being attacked. We know this. It's on the screen. I can see it. But there's no way to just like turn them down or like reduce the frequency. You can only turn them on or off. So at your own risk, you can do that. I usually try to suffer through it because otherwise I just miss waves, and they can sometimes be really, really devastating if they get in and start smashing houses or smashing food sources or something like that. So it's kind of a double-edged sword. For the next wave, we got more horsies, and there were a lot of them. They're starting to become a problem. I did use a couple of lasers since I had gotten a lot of the magic crystals, but knowing what I know now about how the game sort of ramps up, I would recommend saving the magic crystals if you can, not firing off any lasers early on. I think they did add a way to replenish the magic crystals once you've killed all the enemies on the map. I don't fully remember what those patch notes said, and I've never done it myself, but it's a good idea to ration them early on, especially. And I think I used them a little bit too early. Also, I was eating dinner when I was playing this bit, and I looked away for like 1 second, and the horses got in, which was kind of a pain. But I managed to clean them up and recover. And this is where I kind of noticed that this version of Endless Mode seems to be a lot more forgiving than a lot of the other challenge modes. Even the Marathon mode, which is designed to be a longer game, I think brings the waves against you fast enough that it really keeps you on your toes. And I know in the challenge modes where you fight zombies, you can't have a significant amount of wall damage because there's just not time to repair it before the next wave shows up. But I think the Endless Mode has enough breathing room. Now it's still challenging. I'm not saying to say it's not challenging, but it has enough breathing room that if you have a really bad wave and you make a big mistake, you can, in a lot of cases, recover from it, which is not true in a lot of the challenge modes. In a lot of the challenge modes, if I have a bad wave, if they get in, if they do half damage to my town hall, I'm pretty much screwed. I'm probably restarting that run because I can't get back up on my feet after using all those resources for repairs. But in this one, you can kind of do that. So don't give up hope if you have a really bad battle and you're feeling like there's just no way. There might be a way, and we're gonna see that right now. So around day 40, I realized I was not going to have time to finish this run in time to make this video. I was planning to do it over the weekend, and I spent so many hours playing this game that I wasn't gonna have time to edit it. So I revised my goal. Instead of just going as long as I could, I was just gonna try to get to day 50. Because I feel like that's an impressive amount of time. And when I made this goal, I was feeling pretty confident because things have been going fairly well. I didn't think I was going to lose anytime soon. However, immediately after I made that plan, I went to bed because it was 1 in the morning. And when I woke up, I started playing first thing, and things did not go that well. The wave that happened just before day 50, there was 2 waves that happened in succession. There was one pretty big wave with horses, followed immediately by a wave without horses that was like a similar size, but at least it didn't have a bunch of horses in it. And I had to retry this several times. I will admit that. I'm using the excuse that I was playing it cold. I had to warm up because it was so early. But I did reload from my save from the night before, so I didn't really do anything that would give me the upper hand. I just played it differently. Like I kind of knew, well, this didn't work last time, and so I tried something else. And eventually, I did survive. So a couple of the things that I did that I think helped, one was that I added more builders because I wasn't getting things built fast enough before the enemies started arriving. I also walled off the houses better because I noticed in previous attempts that the zombies were getting through the wall and they were destroying all my houses, which just has this ripple effect of you don't have soldiers, you don't have workers, you have to get the resources to rebuild the houses, but you don't have the workers to do it, and so I protected the houses first. I also noticed that I was running out of food, so I used my market to trade for more food, and I did that early so that I would have it on hand, because I knew that it was going to run out. So I am using some of my precognition from my failed attempts, but that's something to watch out for as you get close to like 200 civilians, is that food gets hard to manage. I had 2 farms and a couple of berry huts. The fishing was kind of used up at this point, but the 2 farms were just like not enough really to keep up, even with the granaries right next to them. So food is going to be a problem, but I had a lot of iron at this point. So I was able to trade the iron away for food at a pretty good exchange rate. I also did, in order to speed up the construction, I did the building in sections. So I did all the walls for one side of the base, and I prioritized those. And then the second that they were done building that section, I would prioritize a different section. And this was to reduce the amount of time the builders spent walking around, by manually kind of managing their route. And I think this did help. I really think this helped. It's kind of tedious, but I think it helped prevent them from walking back and forth, which they might have done if I placed down these builds in kind of a haphazard order as I was scrolling around. But after, I think 3 or 4 attempts, I was getting kind of mad actually. I was getting really irritated because I felt like I was really close to doing it, and then I would just have these horrible waves, and they would get to my town hall, but they wouldn't usually destroy it. So I wasn't getting stomped. It was just like, if I could just hold on a little bit longer, everything would be okay. And so after a few attempts, I finally made it through that first wave without having like gaping holes in my walls, and I was able to survive that secondary wave, which is smaller and just easier to deal with. And then I got to day 50. I did it. I don't play endless mode very often. I prefer the challenges, so it was really nice to have this little accomplishment under my belt. I definitely do like a longer game, and Diplomacy is not an option because I have a lot of fun trying to build the late game structures. But because I was fresh in the morning and I wasn't exhausted anymore, and also I was feeling confident after my victory, I decided to keep playing until I died naturally, or until it started to get a little bit redundant if I somehow got really comfortable in this game. But it's okay because the next wave was 3 groups of horses, all from the same direction. Triple wave, all horses. Oops, all horses. And they defeated me pretty handily. And I think this is a situation where if I had pikes, I might have survived. I might have been able to survive this with pikes. The only thing is, as I mentioned, I don't really keep pikes around. But the horses just sort of shred the walls. And I also believe I had the checkbox on. It's called like Experienced Survivor or something, where the enemies will gain health over time to become more challenging. So you always kind of have to be ramping up your attack power and adding more siege weapons and things like that. And so whether it was because it was just late game or because I didn't have pikes, the horses did defeat me, but I did it. I played They Are Legion, Endless Mode, and Diplomacy is not an option, and I got past day 50. I feel pretty good about that, and I think this run was a good example of why I played so much of this game in 2023, why it was my most played game on Steam, and that's because they really get you with that idea of if you just try a little bit of a different strategy, if you just think a little bit harder, if you just rearrange these buildings, you can win. And I'm not really a hardcore strategy person, but I think this game kind of brings that out in me a little bit. And I like it. I like the challenge and seeing how they go. But that's all for today. I'm sure this was a long one, so I'll wrap it up quickly here. Don't forget to subscribe if you want to see more of my videos about games, development, and creativity. I'll be back soon with another video. Hopefully I can get my ass in gear and do some game development next week, get the gears turning a little bit, but we'll see. But I'll be back soon, and I hope to see you there. Okay, bye-bye!